Hello, everybody. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you a series of questions to which you will respond with a movement or a gesture or a spatial formation. And my first question is, arrange yourself in a line according to the color of your skin.
We're doing a spiral thing again. We're doing a spiral again. We're doing a spiral. Or curly whirly. Curly whirly.
I think the olive skin.
Wavy line, yeah? Okay, oh, there's a bit of a line going on here.
You're paler than me.
Wavy line. Have I?
I'm paler than you. Kind of, yes, together.
Do we need to move out that way? What, in terms of the shape?
Shoulder to shoulder. Shoulder to shoulder. You're going to have to curl in a bit more. Hang on.
Can you go that way a bit more? Into the corner? Or there, okay.
Maybe keep
Shoulder to shoulder. Shoulder to shoulder. Circle again.
If you share your living space with other people, take a step forward. If you share your room with somebody else, take a step forward. If you live alone, take a step back. If your living space is smaller than this room, take 2 steps back. If your working space is bigger than this room, take 2 steps forward. If you live and work in the same space, take a step back. If you spend more than 50% of your income on paying rent, take a step forward. If you own your living space, turn around. If you spend 2 or more hours a day traveling between home and work, take the equivalent number of steps to hours spent traveling. If you came to London to study, jump forward. If you came to London for work, jump forward twice. If you came to London for work and are still looking for work, jump forward 3 times. If you came to London for love, raise your arms and jump up 3 times. If the center of the room represents Tate Modern, place yourself in relation to Tate Modern according to where you live.
Lewis, so I'm like way back there, near Brighton.
Where do you live? Where do you live? I'm Borough, so we're sort of. Where do you live?
Southeast.
Where? Southeast. What area? Kent. Where do you live? I'm Borough High Street. Where do you live?
If the center of the room is Tate Modern, place yourself according to where you would like to live.
My favourite place. I want to live in the turbine. All of it.
Yeah, it's the second place my year. Maybe I'll there actually.
Where do you want to live? Where do you want to live?
If the center of the room represents the UK, place yourself according to your country of origin.
I wish I was in the UK. I wish Wales was in the UK.
Oh!
Sorry.
I told you there was a minority. You need to be further away.
Yeah.
If that's more, just look in here.
Should we all go a bit forward then, just so it's here?
Okay. If you think that London is the creative capital of Europe, raise your right arm to the side. If you think that art has contributed to that, raise your left arm to the side. If you agree with Tony Blair that Tate Modern changed the cultural image of Britain, bend your arms and clench your fists. If you think that London is overcrowded, go to stand behind someone else. If you think that more public money should be invested in social housing, place your arm on the shoulder of the person closest to you. If you're clear about what public space in London is, spread yourself out evenly in the space. If you're unsure of what public space is and who owns it, come together in a tight group in the left corner. Now, group yourself according to your main source of information about the world. The newspaper, TV, internet, radio, and word of mouth. Word of mouth.
Separate a bit more from that crowd in the left. Group yourself according to the demonstration you took part in. Anti-war demonstrations, students' protest, London riots 2011, Occupy, or anything else.
Where the student protest.
Somebody, you want to say anything else?
No. Huh?
No, I put myself against it.
Okay.
Anything else?
If you consider yourself able to manage the time that you spend working, come together and keep distance from each other at arm's length. Again, I repeat, if you consider yourself able to manage the time that you spend working, come together and keep distance from each other at arm's length.
Is that because you're well?
If you are a freelancer or self-employed,
come to the middle. If you have a monthly salary, pension or scholarship, make a ring around the freelancers. If you go on vacation every year, sit down. Put your arm up if you think the vacation you would like to go on would be possible in your current conditions. If not, put down. Now point to whom you think in this room is the richest person. If you think it's you, just raise your arm up. Okay, everybody that received a vote for being the richest one, form a line on the right side. The rest form a line on the left side. If you think that money is overrated, go to the left border, the others go to the right border.
Can you repeat, please?
If you think money is overrated, go to the left border, the others go to the right border. If you think art is overrated, go to the right border, the others go to the left border. If you think that sex is overrated, go to the right border, the others go to the left border. If you think that capitalism is the only system possible today, go to the left border, the others go to the right border. If you think capitalism will collapse in the future, go to the left border, the others go to the right border. If you think revolution is unlikely to happen, go to the left border, the others go to the right border. If you trust your government, go to the left border, the others go to the right border. If you believe people would better organize themselves politically, go to the left border, the others go to the right border.
if you think polarization between left and right in this room is a too simple way of positioning oneself, lie down in the middle. If you're still standing, go to the ones in the middle and please help them up again. And thank you.
Hi, and welcome to the performance room for Spatial Confessions. I'm really happy to be here with Bojana Cvejić, who is a performance theorist and maker, and Christine de Smedt, choreographer and performer. And we're going to talk about the performance that just took place, and we can also take questions through Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and on YouTube. Mean to make you talk about it just now when we've just done it, but could you say something, Christine, about how you thought of this space, how you thought of the idea of taking positions in a space like this in comparison to using a theatre stage space?
How I thought about it is that...
Or maybe either of you could answer, I guess.
We were thinking about it together.
Yes, exactly.
Is that, the thing is that the space in the performance room is limited, and I think that this is exactly the thing that is interesting to work, is to work with limitations, according to, or instructions according to having to take a position. And maybe you can add, because I guess...
Yeah, I was interested in... The invitation was that people who lived in a space...
yes.
The same size or smaller than this space.
Yeah.
So there's this idea of a domestic...
and private space.
Environment and a private space. And this week you've been doing similar experiments in the Turbine Hall in a kind of public space, almost like a public square or the street.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just wondering if you could say something about this idea of staging it in what looks like a domestic space and it's viewed in an intimate way in relation to the bigger idea behind this project?
Well, we don't know much about London except that we think that it's overcrowded. So the reason to pick as a topic of the investigation or interrogation of the great people who joined us, who were the volunteers, was the selection that they, as you mentioned, live in a space that is equal or smaller the size of this room, which is a peculiar room, a gallery. Not now when it's painted green, which was the idea of Marta Popivoda, who directed the video of this performance. So it was also an occasion to test what a large number of people, we didn't know how many would respond, there were 47 tonight that you could see, how they would rearrange themselves in relation to the questions that address the topic of living conditions and private space in the relationship between the private and the public. And so what would this interaction produce spatially, and with this specific methodology of having a kind of survey, but a choreographic survey.
Because it wasn't rehearsed as such, was it? I mean, these were spontaneous reactions, so there was an element of live negotiation to how people were positioning themselves.
Yes.
And that was important. I guess that's one of the distinctions between presenting it as a theatre piece of choreography and what you're doing here.
Well, I think that also that this this idea of thinking body that we say, like according to questions and then still positioning, is important in this whole setup of let's say the piece. And of course we did rehearse certain things in terms, it was not the first time that it came to the space, it was we did different dramaturgies, we did in different scenarios, so the people already got to know each other and a little bit more, they got to know more the thing what we were looking for, but they didn't know the questions in advance. That's correct. Yeah.
One of the questions from Navina in Hamburg is, what kind of instructions were given to the performers in relation to movement?
They were supposed to respond spontaneously to the question that was, we hope, clear enough. So there's no more instruction. There's no aesthetic access to their performance. What they did finally, that's
except to act natural. That was me.
But yeah,
pedestrian.
In movements, it's indeed not like any dance movement. Or the movement is more a spatial negotiation with each other in relation to the question, and then we have kind of simple gestures to mark themselves according to the answer that they want to give. So yeah.
Well, that's an interesting way of phrasing it. The answer that they want to give, because. Phoebe Roberts from London has asked, are you interested in honest answers or are you interested in as a game?
I think all public behavior is a performance, so it's always a game. There's a mask of the person that performs. So I'm not sure, and we can't know, and I think the game is to take a position. If that corresponds to the reality of the people involved, that's up to them. That wasn't our instruction.
It's interesting, the title in that regard, Spatial Confessions, especially on a day like today when it's a day when everybody's voting in England, and the act of going to vote is visible, but of course what you put in the ballot box isn't.
But
so this is
sorry.
No, carry on.
Yeah, what I was thinking also, I think I can imagine that from the inside, when doing it, if you do it one day, maybe you answer it such a way, and the next day you will answer it maybe differently, but also because maybe you have thought about it, but also because how the rest of the group affects you. I think even if we have questions that demand or ask for an individual opinion, I think still the group has a certain effect on you.
Definitely, yeah.
If
You
you
could
go
see
and
that.
again, yeah.
You could see some hesitation and building of directions between the group negotiation. Yeah.
So it's, I would say, in the first place, the priority is interest in an honest answer. But of course, we also know it's a performance, so they can also.
I would always say that I'm not even sure that if it's an honest answer, it's an answer that they are prepared to defend at this moment. So it's.
What do you mean by that exactly?
I mean that the public sphere is performed. So if it exists as such, public sphere. So that is also the argument, the position that they take at that moment. Of course, this is a fictional situation. Unfortunately, it's a work of art, or it's under the institution. It's under the name of art, even if we wouldn't claim it as art or dance or anything like that, because choreography is here an instrument. But I think it is it's really a matter of a kind of ideological performance at that moment.
How does that relate to your writing and thinking about this topic more broadly? I mean, we talked about doing this, and there's a conference that's going to be on Saturday here at Tate Modern, as well as these experiments that have been taking place in the Turbine Hall. How have you found doing these experiments in relation to how you've theorized public performance?
I think it's a moment to mention that there is a longer history to this, to the Spatial Confessions, and that's a work by Christine Smedt in collaboration with a number of other choreographers that was from 2000 to 2005 called 9x9, where actually Christine used the term social choreography. Now, what you're referring to is the book that I co-wrote with Anna Vujanović, Public Sphere by Performance, where social choreography is a different term, which is let's say a model or instrument for description and analysis and rehearsal of a social as aesthetic order. So we took it as an instrument for analysis of public sphere. So when I was working on the book with Anna, 9x9 resurfaced for me again, and with your invitation to devise a program around this topic, I came to the idea that we could appropriate the methodology that Christine developed, which involves this questioning and manifestation of answers in choreographically into these things. Could
you briefly describe 9x9, the previous piece that this related to?
Well, this piece was trying to think about how could choreography be related to mass movement today. And each time we would create a piece, it would be specifically relate to a context of a theater that would invite us, which could be like cultural capital, or it would be specifically where we were performing, and we would then choose for a very specific group of participants, and for that group we would develop a choreography that is very much written on this specific group. So we developed like this 15 different pieces, but one important point of our principles was that everybody should be able to do everything what we proposed them. So
it wouldn't be difficult?
It shouldn't be difficult, but also it's not about solos, duos. It's really like every choreographic principle that we propose should be able to be applied to the whole group, to everybody in the group. And so social choreography was one principle that we developed further. And it was, of course, very easy to develop according to the situation where we were, because you can change the questions easily according to a certain context.
But I would like to add something that what we're doing in the Turbine Hall, and which is very different here because we have a closer view and another perspective, not from above, is that it's a social choreography of a mass ornament, where the visitors in the Turbine Hall are interpolated by these questions. But of course, mass ornament, as we know it from history of the 20th century, often totalitarian ideologies, was this representation of the ideology and the state in a stadium dancing, right? That was the mass movement, mass dancing. While here there is a reversal in the sense that it's the responses of individuals result in a pattern that might tell us more or less explicitly what the tendency is as an overall statistic result to the question that is being posed. This wasn't so visible in this version for the live performance room because of the perspective, because we go close to the people, we can see the negotiation that takes place, while in the Turbine Hall we hope, at least that's what we've been doing in this week and we'll continue Friday and Saturday, that there's an image from above that appears, a choreographic pattern of order.
You're kind of supposing that you will see certain patterns emerge.
Yeah.
And we're
with more or less
that goes as
clarity.
An experiment, really. Yeah. There's a question. Tanya wants to know if did you feel you learnt something today? I mean, we saw the answers that people gave, which was telling in a certain way, but what about the question of tendencies?
Oh, it's quite a homogeneous group, I would say. Well, I don't know.
I think one of the things I thought was interesting, and I don't know if this is what you were trying to get out of it, was what you said about how the group follow each other or don't follow each other or take positions against each other almost regardless of the nature of the question in some cases.
Yeah, but I think that at the same time there was like moments in this, that you still can take a very clear position if you don't agree with the group. I mean, I think it was moments where I don't know if I can say I have learned something in terms of I've learned something new. Of course, I've seen with this specific group of people what their, let's say, tendencies are, what their opinions are. And in that sense, I agree that the selection of people that came to the invitation of this project are quite homogeneous, which is already different if we do it in Turbine Hall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we have already a very specific selection in this performance room.
Although in the Turbine Hall you did try it with school groups who were from a very different disciplinary structure, or then some were mixed groups.
Yeah. That's true, that it differs also for, I mean, when a group is addressed, especially a school group, then the discipline is a reflex almost. So they're compliant, and then the questions also result in a more recognizable pattern. But I mean, what we learn is also what maybe this investigation in this whole program is that who are the people who answer to this call? What do they think? Quite leftist, I thought. That's what I learned tonight. That was interesting. At least that was the game they played. That's a tendency.
Audience.
Yes. So, well, that doesn't tell much, because, of course, this is not a proper sociological method of inquiry. It's a
and not pretending
sample
to be.
And not pretending to be. So yeah.
What was your what do you learn from it, or what's your interest in the relationship between interiority and exteriority, in the sense that there's this public, visible manifestation of inner self in some way? Because I thought it was interesting that whilst it seems to be about groups and the choreography of groups and this group negotiation, the questions kind of appeal to your own sense of self almost in a narcissistic way, like what were you there when this happened, or it's all about you.
Well, that's because individualism prevails, unfortunately, unfortunately, there are different kinds of individualism, but I think that it's very difficult for people nowadays to think collectively. And so the only way that they form a group... Was this a way to try
and get people to think collectively? Or I guess I was wondering whether you were trying to expose that solipsism in a certain way, or narcissism. I mean, I felt it myself when I was doing it. It's like, this is about me. I'm gonna But at the same time, you're being staged as a group.
But it's also related to the setup of the whole. Let's say if you call it an event, it's the setup, because nobody knows the answer in advance, and you're asked to respond quite quickly. We also did in rehearsals when we were working before. We had 2 rehearsals before. We were also giving them some group actions where we really wanted to work on how can they develop a group action, and they did it very well. But we had a problem with how to come to an interesting task in this situation with such a short time for them in 5 minutes to develop or to act as a group. And everything became a little bit, I would say it became a bit superficial.
Schoolish or
yeah.
by
dictate. And it was not because of them, but because we didn't manage to come up with a good
But
task.
it's also, I don't believe that collectivity is something that you instill from above. I mean, I think it happens if there is a need and also, I mean, historically this has changed, so it's difficult. It's not even on. Wouldn't be my agenda to say, okay, there are collectives, and I am part of one, which is what walking theory. But there are reasons. There's a history. There's an event. There's something. There's a commitment, and I think you can't impose commitment to others. And that kind of political action, I'm not particularly interested in it. It means you must share ideology, and people are so skeptical of any ideology today, or just the mention of it is repulsive.
There's a comment from Sherry Smith in Norwich that Spatial Confessions is interesting. Bodies in the space are like cells in a single organism, constantly rearranging. It's kind of interesting in terms of individual and collective. Phoebe Roberts has asked, Christine, how do you feel about not having an audience physically present?
I feel good about that, I have to say. No, but I think that in this situation, the group is an audience for themselves, or they are the audience for each other. So for me, in that sense, it's a performance that can perform itself for itself. Can perform for itself, something like that.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, and so that I think was very okay. It's though you could say maybe it's a heavy word, but it's kind of an experience that this group went through to go through these different questions and perform and answer them.
But about the narcissism thing, I want to say this because it's an observation. Working in the turbine hall, we remarked that people can't participate because everything is framed by their telephones. So whatever they do, they will first take a selfie of them.
Take a photo of themselves doing it.
And I wasn't even aware of the term selfie until a month ago or something.
Until Obama took one, maybe.
Yes, that's right.
With the Danish Prime Minister.
Yeah, so I find that that's quite strange. The amount of this mediation that happens through framing everything into image and yourself. Oh, I've been there. And so, wow.
It's true. There's a whole other layer of spectatorship implied in that. Thank you. I think that's all we've got time for.
Thank you very much
indeed. And the experiments are going to continue this week, so please do come down to the Turbine Hall. It's going to be on tomorrow, Friday from 11:30 till 2, and Saturday again 11:30 till 2, and again at 4 o'clock as part of the conference.
Yes, and I think tomorrow from 2 to 4 as well. Just to add that.
Thank you. The next performance room is in September, so thanks very much for watching.